Good afternoon. I'm Ethan Collier, and I will be chairing today's meeting of the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. I want to cover a couple things before we get started. The Planning Commission got this packet in the mail a little over a week ago, and it includes all of the staff's recommendations and all the cases that we'll be hearing today. And Planning Commission's had the opportunity to review it in advance of today's meeting. And so at times throughout the meeting, it moves pretty quickly. In each case, I'll read off the case number, make sure you've got an agenda in front of you. I'll read off an address and the staff's recommendation. If it's the case that staff has recommended to approve the case, Planning Commission will sometimes take action on the case without hearing the staff presentation. So I will ask if there's any opposition present for the case that I'm reading off. If you're here and you have questions or you have concerns, you may not necessarily think of yourself as opposition. So you may be familiar with the case and you wouldn't refer to yourself as opposition, but you've got questions or concerns and you want to say something. We want to make sure that you're heard today. And so when I ask if there's any opposition present, if you're here and you want to speak in regards to that case, please make sure to raise your hand so that I can see you. If we've got opposition or if we've got a staff recommendation to deny, we'll normally hear the whole case. And if that's the case, we'll start with hearing the staff presentation. There will be an opportunity for the Planning Commission to ask any questions of staff. And then we'll hear the applicant. The applicant will come up to the podium here on my left, your right, and please state your name and address and the reason for your request. Tell us anything that you want us to know. And then there will be some opportunities for questions and answers between the Planning Commission and the applicant. And then the applicant will take a seat and we'll hear from the opposition. At that time, there may be a number of people that want to speak in opposition to a case. If you're here and you want to speak, it's really important that you get out of your chair and you move over to the right side of the room and line up behind whoever's the first one at the podium, because the total amount of time allotted for opposition is only 9 minutes. And so there's not a lot of time there for people to be moving around. And also it's difficult for me to tell if there's only one person at the mic and nobody's standing behind them. It's hard for me to tell that there's other people that want to speak. And so from time to time, if there's 6 or 7 people that want to speak in opposition and there's only 9 minutes total, I have to interrupt people, which is really not my favorite thing to do. But I do have to tell people, hey, there are 6 people behind you that want to speak. We need to make sure that we have an opportunity from everybody. And so I will interrupt people from time to time and ask them to wrap up their comments so that we can hear from everybody. One thing that I will advise of you, some people do it, some people don't, but please pay attention to what's being said by the people that are in line in front of you. Because what is not necessarily helpful to Planning Commission is for one person to come up to the mic and speak for 3 minutes about a concern, and the next person comes up to the mic and says the exact same thing, and the same thing, and the same thing, and the same thing. It's helpful to hear new information. And so I know a lot of you might have comments prepared in advance. If it's the case that you're hearing it having already been said, maybe alter your comments slightly so that you can help inform the Planning Commission as they make their decisions. After opposition's done, all of opposition will take a seat. The applicant will have 2 minutes to get up and respond to any comments or questions that were raised. All the conversation that happens today will be between the Planning Commission, the folks up here, and the person at the microphone. It's really important that if you're not at the mic and you don't have the floor, that you're quiet and respectful to the person that actually has the floor. Then Planning Commission will take action. All the cases that we hear today are going to go on to City Council or County Commission, and so you can follow those dates along. They've been here on the screen before the meeting got started. I don't know what they are, but they're next month. They'll be at either County Commission or City Council. with that, we'll go ahead and jump into the agenda. One thing to cover just in regards to the agenda, if you're here in regards to item 19 on our agenda, it's case 2023-0097. It's located at the 1400 block of O'Neill Road and had a staff recommendation to deny. That case has been withdrawn, which means we will not hear it today. The applicant asked to have it withdrawn. We will not be taking action on that. If you're here, just know we're not going to hear it today. All right. The first item on our agenda under subdivision plats and variances is SD 2023-0020, and this is a final plat for Royal Oaks subdivision lots 2 through 18, located at the 10,600 block of Highway 58. Has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is SD 2023-0021, and this is a preliminary plat for Morgan Farms, lots 1 through 183, located at 1044 Etowah Georgetown Road, and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. We have first item under new business is case 2023-0072, and this is located at 6808 and 6814 Ramsey Town Road. And this is an application to rezone from R5 to A1, and staff has recommended to approve this application. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2 on our agenda, case 2023-0073, is located at 811 and 817 and some unaddressed properties in the 800 block of Palmetto Street. And this is an application to rezone from URA3 to URM3, and staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? And do you take issue with the condition? We have a motion to approve with condition. Mr. Anderson.
In the discussion portion, can we ask the applicant to come, Dave, to the front? The condition involves keeping the historic church on the property. You're willing to do that? You commit to that?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you very much. That's all I had.
Absolutely.
Hey, just to be clear, the condition, okay, gotcha. Sorry. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case, item 3 under new business, case 2023-0074 is located at 8538 West Crabtree Road. And this is a special permit for a single wide manufactured home and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? Are you here in opposition? You're here in opposition? Okay. And I asked if the applicant was present. Are they present? Yes. Oh, okay. Fantastic. Thank you. All right, Mr. Schultz.
Sure. This is case 2023-74. This is not a rezoning of the property, but a special permit request for single wide manufactured home. It's on 1.4 acres in size. The property is on A1. Looking at the zoning map, everything around this property is A1. This property does have a sliver of R5 on the property, which does allow single wide mobile homes. But the applicant doesn't really know where on the property the single wide would go. So that's why they're doing the special permit. It may be outside of that R5 zone portion on the property. Again, here's on the existing history. There are some similar R5 zones nearby. One is on this property as well as one at 8317 Middle Valley Road. Looking at adjacent land uses, a lot of property abutting this property is single unit residential. I do have some vacant land to the north, but primarily it's single unit residential. This is a view of the site. Another view of the site. This is a view north of the site showing the single family detached dwellings. South of the site, again, showing more single family detached dwellings. East of the site, and of course, west of the site. The request is compatible with with the surrounding land uses and development form. There is a single wide manufactured home approximately 583 feet to the south and R5 zoning in the area. So staff made a recommendation to approve this request.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? All right. You're welcome to come up. You're the applicants? You are the applicants? Can you come up to the mic? State your name and address for the record.
Grady Kiesler. Our address is 8333 Middle Valley Road. We also own the property at 8538 West Crabtree.
And can you take just a second and tell us why you're requesting this?
To get our grandson and his kids out of our house. They had bought the trailer and we were going to furnish a place to put it. It will be in our name. That's for our grandson, his wife, and 3 children, 5, 4, 2.
All right. Anything else you want us to know? Okay.
There was a trailer here at one time, and part of it did sit on our property, which we didn't complain, but it was R5.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are some folks here that want to speak and maybe have some questions. And then after they get done, I'll ask for you to come back up.
Yes, my name is Ronald Daniel. My current address is 663 Jewel Road in Dayton, Tennessee. But I do own the 2 properties that run, I guess, south. I guess it's on the southwest side of their property. It's 8536 West Crabtree Road. And then there's another section I own, is 3.9 acres, just listed as Crabtree Road. This section right here is showing I guess the area that's R5, the majority of that is on my property. There is a sliver that's on his property. And when I originally bought the property, it did have a trailer on it, the dilapidated trailer. It was just in terrible shape. And I got rid of it. And I never did. I didn't try to get it rezoned just A1 or anything like that. I didn't think it, would have any problems. With Grady, we've talked about this a little bit. There was some discrepancies about where the property line was. I had it surveyed in 2017. I bought the print, actually sent him copies of it on a text. And then we met one day here a couple of weeks ago. We laid it out, looked at it, and he was actually wanting to buy my lot, but I didn't want to sell it. And they've cut in a driveway, and where they put the driveway in, it's 4 feet onto my property. So my only question is, I understand he wants to, supply a place for his family, but it's from this diagram right here where it's showing the proposed, where the trailer is going to be, you can see that it is right up against the property line. And it's my understanding there should be at least 10 feet from side to side. So that's my biggest concern. I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know if anybody else is complaining about the trailer wall, but the biggest thing is just basically not just put it right up against my property, but, he's got 1.6 acres there. And he does have a house on the back end of it, but he's got plenty of land there. I just don't understand why he needed to put it up against my property. And then, like I said, the driveway that they put in is 4 foot onto my property.
Thank you. Sir, can you come back up and address those questions to us, please?
The trailer will be 10 foot from the line. I did not know that the tile that was put in, I didn't know it was 4 foot on his line. It was put in before the stake was put up. I did talk to him about that. And right now, I don't know of any way to move that tile down. But if it has to be, we would move the tile also.
Well, really, we can appreciate the fact that your neighbor has some concerns about the location of that drain tile in your driveway, but that really is not in our purview. So that's between you and your neighbor to get that squared away. It is important that ultimately if you were to get approval and you put a single wide manufactured home there, it's really important that you put it within the setbacks. Otherwise, you're not going to get the permits to occupy it. But all we're here to do today is to either grant a special permit or not. So I think all of our questions have been answered. Are there any questions for the applicant? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next item on the agenda is item 4. It's case 2023-0075, and it's located at 1111 North Hawthorne Street and some unaddressed property in the 1100 block of North Hawthorne. And this is an application to rezone from R1 to RTZ, and staff has recommended to approve this with the condition that it be single-family detached residential uses only. Is there any opposition present? And is the applicant okay with that condition? We have a motion to approve and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in, yes. Did somebody, you were just raising, is there opposition? Okay, thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next case, item 5 is case 2023-0076. It's located at 16015 Lakewood Drive. And it's a special permit for a single wide manufactured home, and staff has recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present?
Mr. Chairman, we did receive several emails, about 9 emails in opposition. You do have that in front of you in your spreadsheet. Most of the comments related to property values declining, single wide not consistent with other homes in the neighborhood, and just basically decreasing property values. I'll let them speak more if there's folks here
Okay.
who would like to speak.
Okay. And is the applicant present? Okay. Mr. Schultz.
Sure. This is case 2023-76. Again, this is a special permit request for single wide manufactured home. It's not a rezoning of the property, but the zoning will stay the same. But just looking at the zoning map, this is all R2. Do see to the south, R5, which is a single wide manufactured home zone. I believe it's being used as a typical single family detached dwelling. The size of this property is about half an acre in size, proposing 1 unit. That's a density of 1.9 dwelling units per acre. There's been some, not zoning history, but in this area, several, like 2 requests for short-term vacation rentals along Lakewood Drive, with it being on the lake. We do have in 2016 and 2021, you see the leader lines going to those properties where those STVRs were permitted. And as I mentioned to the south, there is an R5. That was rezoned in 1982 to R5. Looking at the aerial of the land uses, you do have single unit residential along Lakewood Drive. You have agriculture uses to the north and west. But everything to the south, east, and north appears to be single unit residential. This is a view of the site from Lakewood Drive. Another view of the site. This is a view north of the site. Another view north of the site. This does appear to be at one time a single wide manufactured home. East of the site, single family dwelling. Another view east of the site, again, you can see more single family attached dwellings. Southwest of the site, which is a single family dwelling. And then this west of the site looks like it's being cleared. This is a site plan that was submitted. You can see just, I think in general, the little black square areas. That's the general location of the single wide manufactured home. Staff reviewed this and felt the request is compatible with adjacent land uses, which is again is single family dwellings. There is R5 zone property near the site to the south. So staff recommended to approve this request.
Thank you. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? All right, we'll hear from the applicant first.
My name is Brandy Scarborough. My residence is 15824 May Road, which is about a mile and a half from this location. This is my father's land. He owns the house that you saw to the east, as well as this vacant property. He's owned it for 35 years. For the past 2 years, we have significantly improved the land and the property. My father has accumulated lots of things, and he had them in his yard. For the past 2 years, my husband and I have gone in, cleaned the property, gotten rid of those items, and significantly improved the value of the homes around this due to this. This is a brand new single wide mobile home going in for my daughter. The reason we're going with a single wide is due to simply cost. A double wide is double the cost. Also, it's her and my granddaughter. She doesn't need that much room. She only needs a 3-bedroom single wide home. It's brand new, off the lot 2023 model that we haven't even purchased yet. We're not buying a 10-year-old model that we're moving in that's going to depreciate the value of the homes around it. There is, as he showed, a mobile home next door, which is vacant and has been vacant for many, many years. I've spoken to the owner there. We offered to buy that lot and that home. She wasn't willing to sell, and she's not willing to take it down. So it will still be there. There's also another mobile home around the corner on Daughtry Ferry. And so there are 2 mobile homes in the area. My feeling is that a brand new home going in there, albeit a single wide mobile home, is not going to affect the area and depreciate the values of those homes. Granted, it's not a $500,000 home. It's across the street, which is on the lake. Those homes are very expensive and have appreciated since since real estate has appreciated. But there are other single family homes in the area that would be comparable to this location.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Oh, can I add one more thing?
Yes, please.
I would also like to add, I heard that you had received 9 emails in regards to this, and there is someone here in opposition. I would like to also note that one of the neighbors posted on Facebook that there was a hog farm going in at this location to stir up something, and asked the community on Lakewood Drive their opinion on a hog farm going in on this property. I quickly messaged that person and said, there is no hog farm going there. I'm putting in a single wide brand new home for my daughter and my granddaughter. She quickly took the post down. We discussed in private messages, which I do have on my phone, and said she must have been misinformed that the neighbor had a letter from this, I guess, committee or someone, that there was a hog farm going in there, and how, if anyone had an objection to that. So the only thing I can draw to that is someone was trying to prevent this going in and made it sound much, much worse than it is by saying a hog farm is going in and they were worried about runoff going into the lake.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to note for the record that in our list of opposition, the concerns with property being used as a hog farm has been noted and sent to the planning commission. So to verify what you just said, that someone was spreading that around. So I just want to make sure that's noted for the record, because we have it in writing. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. If you're here and you want to speak in regards to this case, can you come on up to the mic? Sir? Yeah, now's the time. And was there somebody else that wanted to speak as well? Okay. If you do want to speak, come on up.
Resident at 16,000 Lakewood Drive. I'm adamantly opposed to this. The house next to me is, I think the gentleman said it was zoned R5. That used to be a mobile home on that was zoned in 82. Fortunately, that mobile home is gone, and there's probably about a $500,000 house. I own the house across the street at 16,006 Lakewood Drive. And it's a very, very nice house. I would say it would appraise for probably $600,000. Beautiful view from the outside. You see the Chickamauga Lake, but you come out the front door and you're going to see a mobile home. And so I'm asking the planning commission to deny this special permit. The lot that they want to put this mobile home on is a it's a valuable lot. It's lakefront. It's not lakefront, but it's got a lake view. So I'm asking that you consider that not only my home, the one next to it, but there's several houses there that are very, very expensive houses. And I would certainly appreciate if you would. And I know there's a lot of people sent emails and letters to consider those too.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Donnie Pell. I own 15902 and 15906 Lakewood Drive, just down the hill from where this is going to go. And certainly have concerns about putting a single wide in there. All the new homes that have gone in there have been, even the home across the street has just been purchased and completely redone. Even though it's not really in my view shed, it is on my drive in, and I would hate to see the property values. And there's several other vacant lots out there that I would really hate to see get more mobile homes placed on if we set this precedent. So again, I just wanted to raise my position.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for staff. Mr. Schultz, a special permit would allow the single wide manufactured home to go in. Does that restrict at any point in time the removal of that mobile home and the building of a new home?
It does not.
It does not.
It does
So that option still exists for, I would say, a young family to build a permanent home on that site.
Yeah, any of the uses allowed in the R2 zone would be permitted. In addition to that, the single wide, due to the issues of the special permit, would be permitted on this property.
Okay.
It doesn't mean it can only be used as a single wide
Thank
by
you.
the issue of this permit.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Can the applicant come back up? Do you have anything to say in response to some of the comments you've heard from your neighbors?
Yes, I would also like to add that just around the corner in the slough of the lake, there are multiple campers, people living in that have been there for years. My father's been there for 35 years. I've been there since I was a child. Multiple decrepit looking places, okay, that if they were concerned about their property values being lowered, it seems they would have addressed that, or even addressed my father's address at 16103 with 2 dumpsterfuls of scrap metal and lawnmowers, and I can't even tell you what else my father had on that property that we have completely eliminated. And the plan is after we get this in, is then to address my father's home, which is not in great shape. There was a picture of it he put up a moment ago. That's the next phase of this, is that's my father's home right there, is to address that home and to increase the value of that corner lot, which is actually the corner lot. It's the main viewpoint at that turn in the road. We are not on the lakeside. We are across the street. Multiple people have come in and put Airbnbs in, which they're not fond of because people rent them and have parties and shoot fireworks, and those complaints come in. I see them at work. Multiple complaints of Airbnbs coming in. But those have been allowed. I don't feel that they were here. I don't know, but they may have been here to have an opposition to those coming in, albeit they were nicer homes. But their use is temporary, week at a time. Fishermen coming in from the Bassmasters Classic at Dayton, staying a week, partying, drinking, making noise. That's not what's happening here. This is a small family. My daughter and my granddaughter, who's 3.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Vroon.
You did confirm, precedent's been set. There are other special permits issued in that area for manufactured homes.
Not in this location. There's been special permits for the short-term vacation rentals. There is to the south, there was mentioned an R5 zone, but it's currently used as a single-family detached dwelling. But in 82, that was rezoned to R5 for single-wide. But there is no, I'm aware of any special permits for single-wides in this area.
Mr. Maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Schultz, when we do these special permits, do the rules of the underlying zone still stay in place?
They do.
They do.
They
So,
do.
for instance, if you could only have 1 or 2 units on there, that would be what you're limited to. Your
Correct.
setbacks, all that would remain the same, just like if it was a single family house that was going on there.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next case on the agenda, item 6, case 2023-0077. It's located at 133 Gothard Street. And this is also a request for a special permit for a single-wide manufactured home. It has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case, 2023-0078, located at 2404 Elmendorf Street, is an application to rezone from R1 to R3. The staff is recommended to deny the applicant's request. Is there any opposition present? All right, and the applicant's present. Mr. Schultz.
Let me see if I can get my screen to start working again. There we go. This is case 2023-78. This is a request to rezone from R1 residential zone to R3 for single unit residential development. The acres of this piece of property is 0.42. Proposed number of units is proposed at 8. That's a density of 10 dwelling units per acre. Just looking at a zoning map, everything around this property is R1. There is no similar R3 zone nearby. To the south east, there is a small sliver of property zoned to R2, but just generally looking at the zoning map, this area is zoned to R1. The applicant did provide 2 conditions. Those conditions are single-family detached homes only and a maximum of 8 dwelling units. Looking at a bigger picture adjacent zoning, this property was part of a zoning study back in 2004 that downzoned this property from R2 to R1, as well as a larger area. Looking at adjacent land uses, this is a single-family detached dwelling on the property. There's to the west, single-unit residential. To the south are 2-unit residential. To the east, across North Chamberlain, is vacant land, and to the north is a utility substation and vacant land. There are some steep slopes on this property. That's what this map is indicating. There are slopes that are less than 25% on this property, which is indicated by the light yellow color on the property. Here's a view of the site from Elmendorf Street. The site's just on the left-hand side along North Chamberlain Avenue. This is a view north of the site, which is a single-family detached dwelling. This is the utility substation to the northwest of the site. This is south of the site. You can see North Chamberlain there. It looks like the road is in pretty bad shape, just looking at that image there. And this is east of the site. West of the site, which is a single-family dwelling. This is looking along Elmendorf and Wheeler Avenue. This property is located in the historic River to Ridge Area 3 plan, which again was adopted in 2020. And the place type designation is urban residential single-family overlay, meaning the only proposed use of these single-family detached dwellings. It does have a natural resource overlay, just indicating there are steep slopes on the property. The request to rezone is not compatible with the Area 3 plan, which recommends single-family detached residential. The request is not compatible with surrounding development form in the area. Staff looked at the existing lots. There are 6 lots of record, which would allow for the potential development of 6 single-family detached dwellings with an ADU on each lot. The development on the current zoning would follow the existing neighborhood pattern form of single-family detached dwellings on their own individual lot. So staff recommended to deny. On the screen now is the image of the site plan that was submitted with this request. This looks like they are single-family detached dwellings, but they're all on one lot. In essence, like a multifamily type style cottage court development, which is not compatible in form with adjacent developments, which are all larger lots, single-family dwellings on each individual lot. So staff looked at that, and based on the land use plan and the development form, recommended to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff? Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Brian, did you say there are 6 lots of record I'm reading on the slide?
There are 6 lots of record. There are 6 legally platted lots today that someone could
So
develop.
with an ADU, which we recently passed at the city level, there is a possibility of 12 housing opportunities.
Correct. Based on the current zoning as of today, you could get 12 units. Now, you couldn't divide the ADU off, but you could get 6 single-family dwellings with ADU on each dwelling unit. But it would provide in total 12 housing units.
12 housing structures. And they're asking for 8 in this plan.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's
and has ADU been addressed in your conditions?
We don't have any conditions. We were recommended
So
to deny.
no conditions.
Well, we had to deny.
But it's by right, obviously with the,
If the zoning remains the same, R1, yes, he could do 6 single-family dwellings and ADUs. We're not,
okay.
if it's denied, there is no rezoning happening on the property.
Last question, Mr. Chairman, thank you, is of course near and dear to my heart. This will definitely trigger our steep slope component, our vegetation component.
It depends on the slopes. If it's over 33%, you'd have to revegetate. I don't know, based on this map, I think they're 26%
I'll
or
hold
less.
that question for the applicant then.
Yeah, he may know better than I do on the
Fair enough.
slopes.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for staff? Mr. Lau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Schultz, so let me get this straight. The River to Ridge plan says detached single-family residential is what is recommended, correct?
The place type recommendation is urban residential with a single-family overlay, meaning basically the only primary use allowed or recommended would be single-family detached.
And so it looks like this plan is showing detached single-family residential. The sticking point, the reason for the denial is simply that the lot configuration is that it's all on one large lot.
It's the form. The form is different. If you look to the west, just on this site plan, that's one single-family detached dwelling on one lot. Same thing to the one to the south. All these are single-family detached dwellings on one individual lot. Or in this case, you would have basically it looks like it's hard to describe what these are. They're single-family detached when you look at them, but they're all on one lot, which is necessarily like multifamily. But the form is what we're looking at is much different than what's surrounding this property.
Okay, thank you.
Come on up.
And also, just looking at the zoning map, it would introduce R3 zone in there, which is all pretty much R1.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Jones with Stone Creek Consulting, 1112 Wimouth Road in Dunlap, Tennessee. So when the developer and I first started looking at this property, we understood that it's an historic river plan. We know that single family detached is what is appropriate for the site. We looked at the existing 6 lots of record. They're basically just run, they're just in a row, kind of going up. And when you overlay the topo, which is, usually I don't always throw the topo on the site plans, but if we were to build on this existing lots of record, there's a lot of grading challenges with building on these 6 lots of record. And I think it was mentioned earlier that, as the property stands today, we could indeed do, builds 12 units, whether that's 6 single families and a detached ADU or attached ADU, which essentially would be a duplex. Not a duplex, but it's a single family home with an attached ADU. When we started looking at the topography of the site, we're trying to be sensitive to it. And if you go back to the site plan for me, Brian, we're looking at bringing the road access, keeping on contour through the site as opposed to trying to go uphill through the existing alley or unopened right of way that's there. And with the conditions to be compatible with the area plan for this neighborhood, that's why we're also recommending to only have single family detached homes. And very often, we usually don't see a request to actually reduce the available density, but also to be sensitive to the site, knowing that we can't do additional ADUs, would be to put a maximum density of 8 units for the site. We could address the ADUs, but the ADUs can only be allowed if you have a single family home on a lot. With the R3 zone, the approach on this would be to not parcel them out, but to set them aside as HPR, so we can still be able to sell these as fee simple homes. I did mail about 105 letters out to the community. I had a couple call me with a couple questions, but no concerns. So I'll defer the rest of my time to the few folks that showed up with questions.
Thank you. Did you have a question?
I have a question for Alan.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
Councilman
Chairman. Mr. Jones, quick question for you. Although it's subdivided into 6 individual lots, given the topography and the steep slope situation, is it feasible that 6 homes would be built there under that configuration?
Oh, yes. I mean, the developer is he's going to develop this lot. So, if we have to do the 6 lots, we'll just have to do a whole lot more mass grading and figure out the steep slope ordinance and work through that. But yeah, six lots is what's permitted for, what's legal to be built on there today.
Okay. So you do plan on, or your client does plan on building 6 homes.
Oh, at least
maximizing the property that he.
Absolutely. Utilize ADUs where we can. And kind of touching on that same comment, the comment was made that these larger tracts in this neighborhood, if you actually look right next door, which is 3118, my same client bought that property. Yes, there's 1 family home on there, but it's actually 4 lots of record. So he's actually going to be looking at putting 4 single family homes on that property, not having to rezone it because we already have road access. But that's going to be, using the 4 lots of record that are there as well. So we'll be in that same pattern of trying to keep that same pattern of the lots of record that are in the area.
Okay. So in summary, your plan is to build 6 homes if remains R1 with ADUs. So 12 opportunities for housing, or 8 under the R3 banner with no ADUs, obviously.
That's correct.
All right. So make sure I'm comparing apples to apples.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Ma'am, you can come up. Is there anybody else that wanted to speak in opposition? Thank you.
My name is Jessica Bonham. I live at 2901 Noah Street. I don't have a lot to say, just that I agree with the staff recommendation to deny based on the proximity to a historic land site and the issue of the steep slopes. There already is a pretty big problem with storm runoff on some of the houses on Wilder Street. So that's why we are hoping for a deny. Two reasons.
Thank you. Ma'am,
Ma'am, can I ask you one quick question?
Yeah.
So you're opposed to anything being built? That's what I kind of gathered. They have they have a right to build
Yeah,
6
it
homes.
sounds
with
like if it's not rezoned, it'd be 6 units, and if it is, it'd be 8.
Well, 6, and then with ADUs, that's 12.
Okay.
So that's the two options on the table. But I want to make sure I understood you correctly when you mentioned steep slopes and being close to a national
Well, historic land site.
historic land site. So is your opposition to building at all, or?
I guess ideally building it all, but whatever build would be made with the most like intent towards integrity of the land there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Mike Mahoney. I live at 3220 North Chamberlain Avenue. I appreciate the staff coming to the same conclusion I did. This needs to be denied. The R3, he bought an R1, he can have an R1, but the R3 needs to be gone. This looks like a trailer park to me, to be honest with you. I can't see the size of those houses, but I think it's 18 by 40. Is that right? Is that right with that? But my family's owned property on Billy Goat Hill for 70 years, paid taxes. I own 22 lots currently. That's my house, the gray house on the right up there. And he's right, the road's dilapidated. I've been trying to get him to pave it for years. So my question is too, if he ties into that road, does that road have to be brought up to code? Who's going to pay for that? Who's going to open up Elmendorf? There's a reason why Elmendorf's not open. It's the reason why there's a dead end. They ran into a rock. This thing's a rock. There's a rock quarry behind that red house, 25 foot high, stone wall. It's a rock. Good luck on building a foundation. Ask me how I know. I spent $50,000 building my foundation on my house, and I'm on top of the hill. These guys are running into a slope, and it's nothing but rock. It's a rock. There's no dirt on it. Very little topsoil. So I don't know how you're going to dig a footer. I don't know how you're going to put your infrastructure in for plumbing, sewer, all that. So good luck. That's all I can say. And plus what she said too, John Davenport with the Public Land Trust has bought the top of that hill, put it in a preserve because of the Civil War trenches that are up there. I bought up a bunch of property trying to keep people from building up there. I can't stop somebody from building on R1. We can tear that log cabin down, build another house right there. No problem. I don't see how you're going to get 6. Good luck.
thank you, sir. Mr. Jones.
Just a couple quick points. When we were looking at this site, we were trying to be sensitive to the topography of the site by running the access for these sites parallel to the contours instead of going perpendicular up the hill. We'll continue to have to do due diligence on the site as this project moves forward, whether it's a 6-family on the existing lots of record, or if we are allowed to move forward with this plan that we're presenting, we'll have to do due diligence and work through the engineering as that entails. As far as the home types, the developer has built quite a few. These are usually 16 by 40, 18 by 40s, 2-story homes. And, right now the price range is kind of in that $350 to $400 price range. So I think, it's by no means a single family trailer. We're not going to build this kind of infrastructure and put down trailers. We're going to put down homes that are good quality homes that I think will be an asset to this community.
Any questions for the applicant? Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Jones, have you reached out to Councilwoman Coonrod on this particular project?
I have, and she's replied saying thank you for the developer's interest in my district and for wanting to invest in it. And so she has not had any concerns to this point.
Okay. Have you made her fully aware of the project?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had conversations and emails back and forth.
Okay. And my same question, if we'll go to the opposition. Have you reached out to Councilwoman Coonrod with your concerns? your council representative for the area? Okay, thank you.
It's the will of the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move to deny and go with staff recommendation because I feel they are really trying their best to adhere to area plans that have been developed through public input process. And given what I've heard this afternoon, it feels that the applicant has a full intent to move on with using that property and utilize the new ADU component that the city recently has put into place to help increase our affordable housing opportunities. So my form of motion is to deny.
We have a motion to deny. It has been seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Long?
Yeah. On the one hand, I do agree with what the councilman said and with staff's recommendation. I do think, though, that this plan does work more with the existing contours and works not against the landscape, but sort of tries to work with it. And I would say that, the development pressure that's being put on the community is such that the easy to build on lots are very few and far between. And as we approach our future of development, we may have to implore some creative solutions that may not necessarily look like what we've been used to seeing. I think that this plan moves in that direction. If you look at the way that it is sort of working with the contours of the land, the 6 units, I think are probably actually going to exacerbate the very problems that the residents in the area are saying that is there reason for opposition. With that, there's a motion and a second. I will vote against.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Councilman Ledford?
Yeah, rebut on that. And I would agree we are running out of space, but it doesn't mean we need to sacrifice quality for quantity. It doesn't mean we need to start unraveling the fabrics of our community the way they were originally intended or the way they have been constructed. I think people have a right to voice their opinions and to have their neighborhoods. I think just because we can doesn't mean we always should. And this introduces a new form type that will set a precedent. And in my years of sitting on this body and in zoning, particularly for the city, we need to be real careful about precedents. When we set a precedence for a zoning, that case permanently gets recorded and shows up the next time someone wants to. We have 2 cases that are coming up in my district. That is exactly what I will be talking about. And once those foundations are put in place, then they're used for future decision-making. And I think that when we have our area plans, we need to listen to the folks that have participated in that. And just from an engineering standpoint, because we can do it, I disagree that we should do it sometimes. And I think that this is something that we should listen to the people who live in this area. And if Councilwoman Coonrod decides that that's something we can address that at the council level, definitely. But I just wanted to say those few words come from my perspective. And I thank you for your comments.
Mr. Lau?
Yeah, thank you. The last thing that I will say is I 100% agree. I don't think from a building form standpoint, I think these are in fact detached units and hold with that form. When we superimposed the street grid, sort of on a blank slate, and it rose up into hillsides, I don't think continuing to extend that, which is what will end up happening. I think there are times when we must deviate from the street grid. And this was one of those times, but obviously, like I said, there's a motion on the floor in a second, and I guess I'll get out of the way and let us proceed.
Thank you both. Any other comments? All right. All in favor of the motion to deny the applicant's request that has been seconded, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? All right, I'm going to take a quick roll call. Ms. Adamson? Mr. Anderson?
Yeah.
Councilman Ledford?
Yes.
There you go. Who's keeping score? I didn't keep score.
It's a tie.
And remember, this moves on to city council.
No. Well, I've only had the opportunity to do this 3 times in 8 years, and all 3 times were against Mike Price, for the record. But in this case, I'm going to vote no to the motion.
Okay. So
All in favor, please say, well, is there any discussion? Do we want to have any more discussion? We have a motion to approve. And Mr. Maybe.
We'll make this quick. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just say I really appreciated the conversation that just took place there. I think that there were some great points made on each side. And I was honestly conflicted on how to vote on this one. I think that my plan is to vote in yes on this latest motion. And what the deciding factor for me was just, I think that the product is going to end up being way better for the community that's there in terms of how that road grid's going in. I think it'll be night and day if it's that versus them just coming straight off of Chamberlain Avenue with 6 lots. So that's what carried the day for me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Adamson? Okay.
Yes.
Councilman Ledford? No. I think that carries.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Next case on the agenda, item 8, case 2023-. We just made a motion to approve. It goes on to city council. It'll be at city council next month, second Tuesday of the month.
And I highly recommend you reach out to your council
That'll be
representative.
July 11th at 6 o'clock. Okay.
Next case on the agenda, item 8, case 2023-0080 is located at 8434 East Brainerd Road. And this is an application to rezone from R1 to O1 and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? What's the will of the commission?
This is 2 hours. I'm going to move to approve, Mr. Chairman, but I would like to, is the applicant present? Mr. Chambers, can you come up real quick? So first of all, thank you for working with me on your 2 requests on East Brainerd Road. This is a very sensitive area that we've been dealing with as a community for a couple of years now. And we are under the Area 11 plan, which is proving to be pretty solid in working in the East Brainerd area. We've relied on it heavily many times already since its implementation. And I'm very excited to see that I think it's working. And we spent years on this, and RPA spent a lot of time working with the public. So the initial request was C2, and we discussed that. We're at O1, which is, I think, a very appropriate, and I believe Brian backed me up, is a secondary use according to the Area 11 plan for this particular area. And while you're looking that up, I do.
That's correct.
Thank you. I would like, though, to, because of the height and the adjacent to residential neighborhoods, I would like to ask for a 2-story limit on your structure for your office buildings. Would that be amenable to you?
I'd like to echo what you said. It's always a pleasure working with you as well. And the owners here, we're very willing to change that zoning and comply with that office use. And yeah, they're perfectly okay with a 2-story limitation.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I'll be asking the same question on case number 81. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of this with a condition of limiting to 2-story, please.
We have a motion with conditions and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9 on our agenda, case 2023-0081, located at 8512 East Brainerd Road, is an application rezoned from R1 to O1. Is there any opposition present? We have a staff recommendation to approve. Do you want to add a condition?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve and adding the same condition of limited to 2-story.
We have a motion with conditions, motion to approve with conditions, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next case is item 10 on our agenda is case 2023-0082, and this is located at 2163 and 2155 West Shepherd Road, and it's an application to rezone from R2 to RTZ. And staff is recommended to deny the applicant's request. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? And Mr. Schultz.
Case 2023-82. This is a request to rezone from R2 residential to RTZ, residential townhouse, 0 lot line zone. Proposed use is single unit detached residential and attached. The acres of this property is 4.53. Proposed units is 32. That's a density of 7 dwelling units per acre. Looking at a zoning map, the properties to the north, south, and east is zoned R2. To the west is zoned manufacturing. That's the Coca-Cola bottling plant, just to give you reference. Some zoning history on this property. In 2004, there was a request to rezone the northern part of this property from R2 to R3. That case was denied by City Council. This same piece of property in 2019, there was a request to rezone from R2 to RTZ. That was tabled indefinitely at City Council. Staff recommendation in 2019 on that case was to deny that request. This is a single family dwelling as well as vacant property. To the north is single unit residential. To the east of this site is a cemetery and single unit residential. To the northeast is multifamily residential. To the south is vacant land and single unit residential. And to the west is industrial, which is the Coca-Cola bottling plant. This property does have some floodplains and flood hazard areas associated with the property. This is a view of the site. North of the site. This is the site as well. This is the view north of the site. South of the site. Another view south of the site. East of the site. And then, of course, this is west of the site. And this is West Shepherd Road. This property is located in the Shalford Road Lee Highway Area Plan, which was adopted in 2004. The plan goes are low density residential, single family detached dwellings being their dominant use. Here's a close-up view of what that looks like. You can see the plan, it does indicate low density residential. This request is not compatible with Shepherd policy plan that was adopted. Originally, it was a Shepherd policy plan adopted in 1987 that said remain low density. In 2019, that policy was readopted by City Council, which recommends this area remain under R2 residential zoning. That's why you look at the zoning case I mentioned earlier on this property in 2019, where staff recommended to deny. One of the reasons for that denial was based on that readopted 2019 policy. This request will introduce a higher density zone and use into the area, so staff recommended to deny. There was nothing significantly changed since 2019 in this zoning case. So that's, again, another reason staff recommended to deny this request. And I'll have on the screen the site plan that was submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? Mr. Jones.
Good afternoon, Alan Jones. So the Shepherd community is a very active and engaging community. And I met with them probably 2 or 3 weeks ago at one of their neighborhood meetings. It was very interesting dynamic. When we told them that our property was zoned R2, they're like, we don't want duplexes. And I said, okay. I said, good, that's why I'm here. So when I talked to them, we're introducing the idea of doing a kind of a mixed housing type, having both single family detached homes on the front end of the property, and then having a cluster of townhomes on the rear end of the property. And actually, the neighborhood association, they liked having a housing mix available in their community. So after we left the meeting, Mr. Malcolm, who heads up that community, I talked to him the following day, and he said our community has no objection and we will not be underway. And I've also met with Councilwoman Burrs, and she also is in favor of this project because she knows the community is in favor of it.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Answered my question.
And I think I asked earlier, and I didn't see any hands go up. Is there any opposition present? All right. What's the will of the commission?
Chairman, may I speak?
Yes.
I agree. The Shepherd community, the neighborhood association over there is incredibly active and vocal when they don't like something, and they're really good about organizing and reaching out. And it's really telling that there's no one here in opposition. And I'm also aware that Councilwoman Burrs is favorable to this project. So I understand that the 1987 plan readopted in 2019, but the last time a land use plan was done there was 2004. And we think about all the changes in our real estate market since 2004. For example, the thing that happened 3 years after 2004 that changed housing here forever. So I move approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commission.
Next case on the agenda, item 11, case 2023-0085 is located at the 2800 block of Dodds Avenue, and it's an application to rezone from M1 to UGC. Staff is recommended to deny the applicant's request and approve R3. Is there any opposition present? And Mr. Jones? Yes. Mr. Jones, can you come up real quick? Can you come up? Can you speak to the staff recommendation and just from an applicant's perspective, what your thoughts are on that, so that as we're listening to Mr. Schultz, we can kind of have that in the back of our minds?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this site is,
Quickly.
the site's zoned R M1 currently, so we can do everything but housing on the site, and the developer would love to add housing to the site. But the next logical zoning would be UGC, and with the entire west and south of this community is industrial and commercial. Doing the urban general commercial for townhomes that can be used as live work facilities is a really good transition from.
Does the R3 work?
No, it
for
doesn't.
the applicant? It does not.
If we did the sorry, I missed your question. If we did the R3, we're essentially just going to have 8 townhomes stretched across the site, and it just looks awful. I'm sorry.
Why is that?
What?
I mean, just looking at your site plan, I'm not sure why the R3 doesn't work. Can you help me?
Because your setbacks change. You have different setbacks from the R3 to the UGC. When you start getting into the setbacks.
Oh, I know full well.
Yes.
Yes.
It being a corner lot.
Yes. Yep. You're done. Okay. I get it. Yeah, I know that problem. Mr. Schultz.
I think y'all covered it pretty well, but I'll go through it. I mean, I don't want to.
Yes, as soon as he said that, I was like, yes. Actually, I know that problem.
Well, yes, but basically staff, looked at this too. This is not in the Area 3 plan. This is in the Rossville Boulevard Community Plan, which does recommend low density residential, which is primarily single family homes being the dominant land use. There's a closer view of what that looks like. Again, we looked at strictly. It is not compatible. UGC is not compatible with the Rossville Boulevard Community Plan. UGC does allow commercial type uses, which would not be compatible with adjacent development form and land uses. The R3 zone would be more compatible with the Rossville Boulevard Community Plan, land uses, etc. The R3 zone would allow for moderate density development without imposing conditions required under the UGC. So staff recommended to deny the UGC and approve R3. There are options. You could go in front of the Board of Appeals to get variance reductions and setbacks. There are other options out there.
Unfortunately, we don't have those options. I mean, I say we, I mean, the applicant does not have those options. I'm done. Mr. Jones?
So just kind of to retouch on the earlier discussion, the request for the UGC, is so we can do the townhome development. With R3, we run into issues with setbacks. And really with the comment on limiting commercial on this site, it's already zoned M1. So, right now, if the site was, you could do a neighborhood commercial here today, which actually would fit the context of the neighborhood, given everything that's kind of being developed on kind of the west and to the south from a commercial standpoint. But I think a live work townhome style development is more in line with this neighborhood. And we'd be happy to entertain conditions that would limit this to single family or, housing use only if we want to omit the commercial uses. If that makes it a little more appetizing for the UGC zone, just limiting it to just residential use only.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You kind of read my mind, Mr. Jones, on the limiting to residential use only. Last Tuesday at council, we had this conversation in Planning and Zoning Committee about what that actually entailed under residential uses only. And because there was some question about the ability to skirt the 500-foot, for example, alcohol sales, and whether or not that residential use kind of covered it. So RPA is going to strengthen that language a little bit from what I am told to help clarify when we do residential use only as a condition, that it removes the commercial component to UGC. And so I think that you have some safeguards put in place to the public there. So I appreciate you mentioning that, and that conversation can definitely happen as it moves into council's hands for next month. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ma'am.
Hi, my name is Jasmine LeBlanc. I live at 3014 13th Avenue. Sorry, 3014 13th Avenue. I have several addresses. And my concern with this location is that it's at the intersection of Dodds and 29th. And the 29th takes you all the way up to the tunnel that leads into East Ridge. So it's a high traffic intersection and corner for our neighborhood. There's lots of people, it backs up multiple times a day as people are turning to go back into town, and it's a major cut through. So my concern was the access point that Mr. Jones's partners had presented with how people are going to be coming in and out from 29th. Getting out on the 29th and turning is going to be very complicated for that many additional lots. Units added onto that tiny lot. And that's been the community's biggest concern. We're fine with the rest of the zoning things. It was just the access and what it's going to do to traffic and general safety, because people come around that curve really fast and it's a blind curve and you can't see things. And so we're just concerned about the additional density.
Mr. Jones.
A couple of quick things. So there's an existing alley that will be, having the access for the vehicles to these homes. The good thing is the alley does connect between 28th and 29th Street. So, as residents are figuring out the traffic patterns in this area, there are multiple options as opposed to just hitting 29th Street. They can take the alley up to 28th and find their way through different routes. I've been on the site multiple times, and I've actually, sometimes I've taken 29th Street and sometimes I said, nope, I'm taking 28th because it's a little easier. And then as far as being a little bit of a blind curve, that's something that we can continue to work with CDOT during our permitting. If we need to have a convex mirror across the street to help with visibility and things of that nature, we can help and work through some of that, the safety concerns as far as accessing the existing alley that's there.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? What's the will of the commission?
I'm going to make a motion to approve UGC with the condition of residential use only. And I do want the record to reflect we need further conversation before we get to council on egress and ingress possibilities, and keep that conversation going. But that would be my motion at this time.
We have a motion to approve UGC.
Oh,
Yeah, the applicant's request.
May I add one more condition, Mr. Jones? limit it to or 2-story. Currently, UGC allows 5 stories.
Could we do 3? The reason is because we've got topo on the site.
You have the topo on the site?
Yeah, we want the upper units to be able to see over the lower
Yeah,
units.
And I understand that from the engineering point of view, so I'll add that condition as well, limited to 3 stories. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion to approve UGC with conditions. And it has been properly seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lau?
one of the things that UGC, I believe, does do is create the possibility for STVRs. Is that correct?
It does.
It does, but legislation on that.
Good safeguard.
What's the will of the commission?
You have a motion and a second with 2
Oh,
conditions.
I'm sorry.
Chairman.
All in favor? Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Sorry, you can only do like 5 things at one time.
Thank you.
I could only do 1. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And case 19 on our agenda, case 2023-0097 has been withdrawn. And I'm going to turn the meeting over.
Mr. Chairman, I think you've skipped ahead a page.
Did
We're
I?
on 12.
Whole page.
You're in a hurry to get out of here?
I am. I am. But if you turn the paper just right, that whole side goes in the garbage. Item 12 on our agenda, case 2023-0086, is located at 2706 Dodds Avenue and 2767 East 28th Street and 2700 block of East 28th Street. And it's an application to rezone from R1 to RTZ and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda, item 13, case 2023-0088 is located at 8220 Appleton Pike, and it's an application to rezone from R1 to C2, and staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? Are you familiar with the conditions? You're fine with them? What's the will of the commission?
Chairman, this is in District 4. Normally I would cringe at the idea of an R1 going to a C2, but this is obviously along the Appleton Pike corridor where we're seeing a tremendous amount of commercial growth in that area. And you are okay with the condition, Mr. Ingram. I understand. So with that, I will move to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on our agenda, item 14, is mandatory referral 2023-0089. And this is located at the 2200 block of Gun Barrel Road. And it's a mandatory referral for a sewer easement, abandonment, and closure, and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is case 2023-0092, and this is located at 1808 Jenkins Road. And it's an application to rezone from R1 to RT1. And staff is recommended to deny. Is there any opposition present? And Mr. Chambers? Mr. Schultz?
And staff did receive 1 email in opposition to, which is in your spreadsheet. This is case 2023-92. This is a request to rezone from R1 residential zone to RT1 residential townhouse zone. Proposed use is townhouses. It's a little less than an acre. It's 0.96 acres in size. Proposed number of units is 13. That's a density of 13.5 dwelling units per acre. Looking at the zoning map, merely to the north of this site is R1. To the south is R1. If you go further south, you do see some R5. To the east is R1 and to the west is R1. Again, looking at the map, about 2 parcels to the north, you do see RTZ. There's been some zoning history in these areas, which are the RTZs that are noted on the on the picture here. However, those were conditioned on density and uses. If you look the one to the north of this site, that had a maximum density of 6 dwelling units per acre. The one to the south, southwest of the site, had a maximum density of 4.3. Looking at adjacent land uses, to the north and south are single unit residential. To the east is vacant property. And to the west is single unit residential. This is a view of the site. This is the view of the site, Jenkins Road, just on your left-hand side. It's a view north of the site, south of the site, west of the site, and then Jenkins Road. This is located in the East Brainerd Area 11 plan, which is adopted in 2021. The plan recommendation is suburban residential, primary uses being single-family detached residential. Townhomes are listed as secondary use if you meet secondary use criteria. Here's a close-up view of what that plan recommendation is, which is, again, suburban residential. The proposed RT1 zone would introduce townhomes as a use in this area, which does not meet the primary uses listed in the Area 11 plan of the suburban residential place type. It does not meet the secondary use criteria as established in the plan, which is within half a mile or 1/4 of a mile of transit. It's not located within 1/4 of a mile of a public school or a park. It's not located on A Street, and it's not located on a corner. So it does not meet any of the secondary use criteria. So the proposal is not compatible with adjacent land uses and development form. The request would introduce a higher density development, which is roughly 13 dwelling units per acre, that is not supported by the adopted East Brainerd plan. Again, as I showed earlier, there was some previous zoning in this area, but that density was held to maximum density of 6 dwelling units per acre or less. So with those reasonings, staff recommended to deny this request.
Any questions for staff? All right, Mr. Chambers.
I would. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, so as I spoke earlier, the Area 11 plan has recently been implemented in 2021. It stood to be a pretty solid foundation for as we move in density from Gun Barrel through Jenkins over to Morris Hill. And I appreciate staff taking a really hard look at this because we've had, this is what I call kind of the middle of the sandwich in the district in a transition zone. And I knew we would see activity to try to punch in some density. Other applicants have worked with the community on density to try to mitigate that situation. I'm not certain that any efforts have been made yet with the community. We haven't had a community meeting at all, I don't believe, on this for them to have an input. I think we have some opposition here. So I just wanted to say that's where we're starting on this one is it's going against Area 11 plan on 2 accounts. Plus we've not had a meeting. So you can probably feel where I'm going to land. That planning commission can go against me and that's fine, but I'm probably going to be standing with the Area 11 plan on this one.
Mr. Chambers.
Sure, it's me again. I'm Rocky. I appreciate the staff's comments and Councilman Ledford's as well. You know, when we were looking at this property, trying to come up with a reasonable use for it, you know, we looked around at the adjacent uses and saw some other townhouse developments around us, and said, hey, you know, there's a single family house here. It looks like townhouses would kind of conform with what's around us. I understand staff's reliance on some density numbers there as well. I will say those other developments are a little bit different than this in that there's an adjacent city right of way that we're actually planning on opening up. And so that's not really used in our area calculation. So while yes, on our property, we are a little over 13 units per acre. When you take in what's adjacent to us, it doesn't look quite that bad, but certainly less than the 4 units an acre or whatever some of those other townhouse developments are. So anyhow, when we looked at it, you know, we just saw it in a little bit different light, in that, you know, there are other townhouse developments, you know, within sight of this one as well, and so we saw it as kind of conforming with the rest of that. We do have the property owner here as well, and the contractor who will be responsible for building those. I'm sure many of you know Steve Long behind me, and then we also do have some neighbors who showed up in support of the project as well. I think they may, anyhow, we have some of those here. So while we didn't meet with all of the neighbors, maybe we should have or should still, we did talk to several of them, and some were in support of what we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Woodford.
Mr. Chambers, was that a publicly noticed meeting for everyone to invite, or just the folks that you kind of picked to talk
We
to?
just kind of walked around because I know one of the guys across the street, he runs East Brainerd baseball and softball, whatever that is out there at the youth center. Talked to him. Basil, he lives across the street there. We spoke to him about it. He's good with it being there. And I also developed Village of Ashwood with Jack Benson. That's the kind of project we do. And I also did Amberley Ridge off East Brainerd Road. I was a developer on that with Ellsworth Galloway out of Florida. So that's the kind of stuff we do. We do nice communities. As you can see, the Amberley Ridge, it went best to best last 13, 15 years, whatever it is. So we built a nice project. We just don't throw cracker boxes in there. We do a nice job, and we try to blend it in with the community to make it fit.
Sure. And I would never, my questions are not rooted in your quality of product at all, sir. It's strictly from a zoning standpoint and the Area 11 plan, which we've been standing on since 2021. And it's proven to be pretty useful for us. So, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Was there any opposition? Would you like to speak?
I'm Diane Thompson. I live at 1812 Jenkins Road, which is right next door to this property. There's one thing where there's lots of problems. Mainly is the traffic that's already on Jenkins Road. It's a cut through. Traffic is horrendous. The school systems is already maxed to capacity. Down each side, right next on the other side of us, there's already been approved a 32 house going in on 5 acres next to us on the other side. It hasn't started yet, but it's been approved. Down the street, there's already multiple housing going in. At the corner, at the curve, there's multiple houses going in everywhere. These townhouses is just going to add to the problem of the overcrowding, the sewer systems, and it's not, most houses in there are single family, not townhouses. And I oppose, and so does my husband oppose.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have a question for her. Ma'am, quick question. Were you asked or discuss this with your adjacent property owner? Okay. All right. And that's just stressing my point about the neighborhood or community meeting as we move forward. So, yeah.
I lived at 1819 Jenkins Road years ago. I now live at by Hurricane Creek on that hill right there. And I understand the problem that's been there in the past, but if there's approval and we're having problems on that road, I know there are problems between there and Morris Hill and all of that. Okay. I don't believe these few townhomes want to add any more problem because it's right there at the corner where you hit that roundabout and you go right up Igu Gap and be right on Gun Barrel Road. Or you go right on the hit I-75 right there. And you do know they're changing that, how you get off at the mall and all that stuff. And I think it's going to alleviate some of the problem with the traffic in that area too, because people will be getting to the mall different ways instead of coming through Jenkins.
Yes, sir. So that's the Goodwin Road extension.
Yes.
I'm very familiar with that.
Yes, my brother-in-law is
very familiar. So, all right. Thank you for that.
Was there any other opposition that wanted to speak? All right, Mr. Chambers.
Sir. I hear the concerns of the neighbors about traffic, being congested on Jenkins from time to time, which, I mean, to be fair, in the mornings I've been through a lot there. I wouldn't say any of the intersections were failing, but there certainly are some backups from time to time. And when I talk about failing, I'm talking about the traffic classification of failing there. and 13 more units honestly isn't going to really have any effect on those in the morning or evening. Also hear Councilman Ledford's comment that no, there was not a publicly mentioned meeting on this project. And certainly maybe we could have done a little better job reaching out to the neighbors this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion. I know that's probably going to go the other way, but I think it's my responsibility to my constituents, to the Area 11 plan that this body adopted, especially considering we have not had dialogue with the community or even talked about density caps. I'm going to move to deny, and that would be my motion at this time.
We have a motion to deny. It has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next case on the agenda, item 16, is case 2023-0094, and this is located at 1812 South Hawthorne Street. And we have an application to rezone from R2 to O1, and staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? Are you familiar with the conditions that staff has recommended? Okay.
They're on the screen right now.
The conditions are that the use of the existing structure only, except for changes as needed for ADA compliance. And then that there only be one sign that could be permitted and shall consist of one nameplate, non-illuminated, attached to the residential structure, and not more than 9 square feet in area. Are you fine with both of those?
Great. We're fine with that.
Okay. And I asked earlier, but just to confirm, we have no opposition. We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda, item 17, case 2023-0095, is located at some unaddressed property in the 1700 block of South Hawthorne Street, and it's an application to rezone from R2 to UGC. Staff is recommended to deny the UGC and approve RTZ. Is there any opposition present? Ma'am, are you familiar with that staff recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, and you're fine with the RTZ? We have we have a motion to approve RTZ, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion?
Chairman, just a point of personal privilege. Christy or Scotty, if you want to come up, can you explain what Launchpad is? I think people should know what it is.
Okay. I'm Scotty Bowman, founder of the Launchpad. The Launchpad is a sober living community for women recovering from alcohol and drug addiction. We currently have 5 houses on the block that we just opened our last 3, and we house 50 women at this time. We're working to get them all filled up, but we do have a waiting list, so we're trying to bring them in slowly as we get staff to do so. We also just got zoned for the 1812. That's a house that I purchased and renovated and to become offices for us so that it's in walking distance of the women in recovery. The 2 lots in question that are unaddressed at this time are we want to put quadruplexes on. We'd like for our women to be able to graduate into affordable housing units. So that's going to be 8 units. And we also have 2 lots that the county and the city have conveyed to us that are directly next door to the 2 lots we're applying for zoning today. And we'd like to apply for those to be rezoned a little later date. We want to have 4 quadruplexes and build 16 affordable housing units, 100% affordable. We've done some studies on what affordable housing wages are, and they say it's $13 an hour, but they say you can only pay about $400 a month at $13 an hour. And a lot of our women are coming all of our women are below poverty level. So we want them to have 100% units that are dedicated just to them having a place to live once they graduate from our program. We're having a lot of success in our program. We have 3 graduating this week. We use drug court or recovery court. Judge McVeigh sends us women, and we get women from the Tennessee and Georgia state parole boards. We bring in women out of jail who have been convicted on drug-related issues, not nonviolent offenses. So we've been approved by them as well. We have some of our women going back to school with Chattanooga State, UTC. We have a relationship with them. We have relationships with Joe Johnson Mental Health for intensive outpatient therapy once they come into our program. And we bring in women from Cadiz, Focus, and Bradford out of the 28-day stay for inpatient therapy, where we help them to maintain sobriety and launch them into a better way of living.
Scotty, thank you for that. Chairman, I know that we already had a motion in a second. I'm just in awe of what they're doing there, and I wanted everybody to know about it. It's incredible. Thank you for what you're providing.
Thank
and
you.
The construction itself is nice, so we're not, we
Yeah,
want to lift these women and not leave them.
It's all new units. Nothing's dilapidated. We've really improved the neighborhood. We do community service in the neighborhood as well. Thursday, about 8 of my women are going to paint the lady across the street's house. We're going to clean it Wednesday and paint it Thursday. So, and then we have another gentleman down the road that we've offered to pressure wash his house as well. So, and the neighborhood loves us. And a lot of our girls are working at the spot, which we're currently actually trying to buy the business of the spot so that we can have a place for them to work. So we're working on a lot of things, and we'd just like for that whole street to be a community and better. It used to be a lot of crack houses. We got rid of our last crack house last year. We're right next to Ferger Place, the morning side and evening side. So they really appreciate the work that we're doing over there. And it's come a long way. The neighborhood's vastly improved.
I wonder if you could provide any restaurant expertise if you.
For the spot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any
Just a
experience
little
in
bit.
that?
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I don't
I'm
want
just,
to make a lot of changes. It's perfect like it is.
Scotty, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you both. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda, item 18, is case 2023-0096. This is located at 4615 Hickson Pike. And it's an application to rezone from R3 to R4 special zone. I'm sorry. It's an application to rezone from R3 and R4 to C2 and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And as I mentioned earlier, case 19, 2023-0097 has been withdrawn. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Todd Lehman.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, we're going to continue to move forward with our agenda. Next on our agenda is item number 20. It's case number 2023-0083. It's located at 73 Shallowford Road and 2 unaddressed properties in the 200 block of Obey Street in the city of Chattanooga. The request is to rezone from R1 and R3 residential zone to UGC urban general commercial zone. Currently, the staff recommendation is to deny the UGC and approve R3. Is there any opposition to this case? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we did receive opposition email as well. That's in
Okay.
your spreadsheet.
And the applicant is present? Okay, great. Mr. Schultz, if you'll take us through this.
Case 2023-83, this is a request to rezone R1 and R3 residential zone to UGC, urban general commercial zone. Proposed use is attached residential. The overall acreage of the site's 1.06. Number of proposed units is 10 townhomes along Obey Street, and there's an existing multifamily unit on the property that has 16 existing units. That's a density of 9.4 dwelling units per acre for the new units and a total of 24.52 for the total units of the entire site. There's been no recent zoning history for this site. There is no UGC zone property near this site. You can look at the property. It's zoned R3 and R1. To the west of this site, across Old Bay Street, is R1. To the north is R1. To the east is R1, and to the south is R1. And you have a long sliver of R3. But in this general area, there is no urban general commercial zone nearby. This property is being currently used as a multifamily. To the north is single unit residential. To the east is single unit residential. And to the west along Old Bay is vacant property and single family dwellings. This property is about 380 feet to the north of Birds Mill Road. This site does have significant slopes on the property, which ranges from 45 degrees and percentage and less, which is indicating the orange color, and the yellow is 26 or less. There are some steep slopes along Old Bay Street on this property. Here's a view of the site from Shalford Road. This is the site on Shalford Road. Those are the apartments I was talking about a minute ago, that's zoned R3. This is the back view of the property from Old Bay Street. This is looking down Old Bay Street. The site is just to your right in this picture. This is looking north on the side. The apartments are just down to the right, the brown roof. This is a view south of the site. Old Bay Street is on your left-hand side. This is west of the site. The proposed UGC zone would introduce an urban form, density, and mix of uses that is not supported by the area plan, and it's dissimilar to the surrounding zoning and development form. There is no adopted land use plan to offer guidance on the introduction of attached housing and higher density along Old Bay Street. Approving the R3 residential zone for the entirety of the site will bring the existing multi-unit residential structure into compliance and allow limited additional residential development along Old Bay Street. Rezoning to R3 would allow potentially 3 to 4 additional units to be developed on the site along Old Bay Street. So staff recommends to deny UGC and approve R3 for the entirety of the site.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. If the applicant will come up, and I anticipate, well, you're not good with the staff recommendation, correct?
No.
Okay. If you could, your name and address.
Yes. Donna Shepherd with AD Engineering. Brian, could you go back to the view first where it shows from Obey Street, the vegetation, or maybe an aerial, please?
That one, or
go back again. There you go. So the existing apartment complex before my client purchased the property was actually condemned. So they have totally renovated that and brought it back online for tax purposes. Behind it is the slope. I think they added an additional parcel to that to the left. If you could go to my site plan, please. There you go. So you can see that it is mixed zones. The existing apartment complex is partially in R1, partially in R3. That view that you just saw is probably about where the label is, proposed zoning UGC. There's already slope failure on this piece of property. And so one of the thoughts of actually doing a townhome product on here is that we can address that slope failure and then also add some residential units in it. The majority of the property there is already R3. As you heard in the previous case where they were requesting UGC versus an R3 zone, setback is an issue. So we want to keep as close to Obey Street as possible so that we're not getting up the hill towards Shalford Road into that slope. And so the building wall can also act as a retaining wall and be all connected together to provide some slope stability. This is a proximity to downtown, which is a very desirable area. The townhome units would provide a transition from the multifamily buildings. And so it would essentially be a single family attached unit versus a detached, which would be very difficult to do given the slope. If we were to subdivide this into individual lots, You aren't allowed to carry retaining walls across property lines. They would have to stop at each individual property line, which is very difficult construction wise. That's my basic outline of it. I'm going to let the opposition talk, and then I'll address any other conditions. One other thing I wanted to add, in the staff report, it mentioned that CDOT would like us to bring the road up to standards, and we're agreeable to that. Probably should have, when we requested the UGC zone, to put a condition on there for residential use only, which I failed to do, but we are agreeable to doing that and not have any commercial uses. The UGC would bring the apartment complex into compliance and then also allow for the townhomes.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Councilman, and I failed to mention if there were any questions for staff too. So questions for staff or the applicant. Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. Ms. Shepherd, a couple of questions I want to clarify. So you addressed that the R3 to UGC, we see that a lot with the setback requirement being less. So you're trying to move your project closest to Obey Street.
Correct.
And that allows you to do the work you need to do with slope.
The higher I go up the slope,
Stabilizing.
the further back I take my townhomes, the higher that wall gets for this the stability and exponential cost increase. But yes, we want to keep the townhomes closer to Obey with a drive and then go. They are going to be they're going to be garage loaded, so there won't be any surface parking.
Well, okay, you addressed that parking. That was number
Yes.
3. Number 2 is the number of units in R3 versus the UGC. Is it the same? Is it the setback?
When we looked at the R3, I'm going to go back on memory. I think there was a couple of units difference because R3 density is based on the total area. So it's 7,500 square feet for the first unit plus 2,000 for each. And we were a couple off. And with the expense of the retaining wall, we really wanted to try to capture that.
Okay. And
So we're very close on density.
We covered my third question. My next question, Mr. Lehman, if I can. Brian, is there any UGC even near this? I don't see why it would be.
No, this is all residential.
Okay. Okay. And I kind of covered those comments earlier, so. Right. Mr. Lehman, thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Long.
Question for Donna. So the existing apartment complex, how many units was that?
I believe there's 24. I think there's 24 units there already.
And that will go away.
There's either 16 or 24. I can't remember. I'm
I believe
sorry.
it's 16.
It's 16.
But that you said it's been condemned.
It was condemned. They brought it back online, renovated the whole thing, brought it up to code, and I believe it's in use now. Do you know? The apartment building it's currently being used now. Yeah, it's functioning. It's online now, but it was condemned.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff or the applicant? Ma'am, I know you had your hand up. If you'd like to come up, if there's anybody else that would like to speak. And if you would, just your name and address, and then we've got about 9 minutes for opposition. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Patricia DeLoach, and I live at 297 Obey Street. My objection to this is that Obey Street is a narrow one-way street. If they're going to put multiple houses on the property behind those apartments, limits our ability to get in and out. I've lived there for 40 years. We already have enough problems when they have problems up there. When they recently condemned them in December, those apartments, because of the fact that they had pipes that burst when it froze over, and all the water, all the mud came to my house. We don't get any assistance in them removing anything that they've done. When they worked on the back of that, they parked right at the end of my driveway, made it a total muddy mess. It will totally inconvenience the people who live on this street. It's not a lot of us that live on that street, but we have been on that street a long time. And those apartments have created nothing but problems. I feel like it'll bring an undesired element. We've had trash on our street since they opened those apartments. Even though they have a fence up there, the people throw their stuff, ends up on our street, in our yard, what have you. I am directly opposed to them putting anything on Obi Street because there's no in and out. We have enough trouble getting the fire department and stuff down there. If they build on this side, I think that's going to be a hazard to everybody.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Bill Simmons, and I live on Missionary Ridge near these apartments. I've lived there all my life. I live across the street from the apartments. I also own a lot that's adjacent to the apartments on the side of Shallow Ford that the apartments are on. So I'm really not here necessarily in opposition. I am in opposition to the plan as presented. I'm not in opposition to developing properties along Obi Street. That's the way we've always said it, Obi Street. But there are some problems with that kind of density that's being proposed. And I really don't understand switching from UGC to R3 because R3, if you tried to build multiple units down there, it's going to require close to half an acre of land. 7,500 for the first unit, and 2,000 for each additional unit. I mean, if you had 10 units, there's not a half an acre of land, I don't believe, down there below those apartments to build on. Also, they said that they're going to have like garage parking in the townhomes or apartments or whatever. But where are visitors going to park? There's no parking. Obi is a one-lane road. As it is, fire trucks can't get down it. There's no place to turn around at the bottom. Large ambulances have the same problem. Gentleman that lives down there that I know who I've talked to who also opposes the current plan. I need to make this brief, but he had a health problem and they had to park at the top and go all the way down with the stretcher and bring him back up. So, there are only 4 or 5 houses down on Obi Street. It could be a really nice residential cul-de-sac. It's got that potential. You put apartments down there. The apartments are up on top. The apartments are on Shallow Ford. If you put apartments down there, I think it would change the whole nature of Obi Street. I mean, and given perhaps a promise or an agreement or something that the developers would widen Obi Street, that's going to be tough. The city side of Obi Street, the west side, just drops straight off. That's why it's one lane road. So those are some of my concerns. I would actually like to see development on Obi Street. I think it would be good, but appropriate development is what I'm hoping for.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Julie Moore. I live at 68 North Crest, just maybe 5 houses up on this end of that picture. 118-year-old home. My reason for opposing this is the erosion that will unavoidably take place during construction. It's already a steep slope. They'll have to remove large established trees if they go further down Obi Street. You can replace established trees with vegetation, but that's not going to replace large root systems that really hold ground in place. That's very concerning. So during construction, a lot of erosion will take place. That's living just above that is concerning. I'd like for that property to be there for hundreds of years more. Then turning out of Bird's Mill onto Shallowford or turning off of North Crest onto Shallowford it's a risky little game you play. You turn off your radio, you roll your window down, you listen for cars, they just fly through. Adding more residences to that area is just going to make that a nightmare. Very scary. So I would really love to see it just stay at R1, and if it does go to R3, it would be really sad. I would hope that there would be a limit on the height of that for the residents that live on the streets above it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I'm Tim Moore, 68 North Crest. That was my wife at 68 North Crest. I'm in opposition to this project, especially for the change to UGC from the current R1 and R3. In the applicant's application narrative, they state that the townhome form will create a continuous retaining structure. If you go back to your site, I think it was labeled site back. I think the previous one, it was the photo, right? I think it's there. That is what the current residents on Obi Street see. And even though that structure was rehabbed over the past 6 months, I believe, or 4 months, that is still what they see. I was just on that street last week, and the back of it still looks dilapidated. So when we're talking in terms of the new structure helping to prevent future erosion due to the retaining wall, if you look at this picture here, that is going to be an enormous structure, an enormous structure. I'm in commercial real estate. I build buildings. I know what it takes to do a retaining wall right. That is going to be an eyesore from Glenwood. You're going to see this coming up because all the vegetation is going to disappear. All you're going to see is this enormous concrete structure. We don't know what the design is ultimately going to be. The existing unit you're looking at is 16 units, and it is single story. We don't know what the design is going to be on this new structure. If you don't stay with your recommendation to deny UGC, it could go up to 5 stories, if I'm understanding that correctly. Living at 68 North Crest, we are above this. My view will now be the roof of a structure rather than the beauty of woods and trees and green and vegetation. Traffic and speed are already a problem coming up Shallowford Road from Glenwood. As Julie just mentioned, turning off of Bird's Mill is a big safety issue. Turning off of North Crest onto Shallowford or from Shallowford onto North Crest is already a safety issue. The speed there is marked at 20. Nobody does 20 on that road. And traffic coming off of that one-way street, Obi, has a hard time getting out already. So you're going to just add to the number of folks and that congestion coming down Shallowford or going up Shallowford. In an early statement by Councilman Ledford, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, We don't need to sacrifice quantity for quality. The proximity of this site, being so close to an area that's registered nationally historic, is one of the few remaining in Chattanooga where that should be more of the case. We have to be very sensitive to that. I'm not opposed to development, but appropriate and the right development for the area, this density is significant.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any questions for opposition? Shepherd, if you want to come back up, you've got some time. You can respond to a couple of those points.
These are great questions that they have. I wanted to go over a couple of things, and I've got Ernie back here. We're going to reach out to these folks and talk to them. I wish I had put a profile, a side view of the hill with that. I think what they don't understand is the development is going to be on OB Street, sorry. So what they're going to see from there is townhome units. We are going to widen the road, which the first lady that spoke, she had some concerns about the road being wider or not being wide enough to get down there. So we're going to address transportation. We have to go through the permitting process. So you're not going to see a blank retaining wall through there when you develop it. So if you can picture going into a garage, walking up to another level and having upper living spaces. And so as you tear back on this slope, the upper level is going to be closer to the higher slope. So it's going to look like a townhome from the back side, and then they would walk out on the upper side of that unit. I'd like to see this move forward. I did look at the density while I was sitting there. I think that was one of the questions that you had. We're in an R3 zone, and if you do the 7,500 square feet, like I had mentioned in the 2000, we could do a total of 19 units. If you think about the units on Shallowford Road, they are actually fronting Shallowford Road. They actually exit out almost to Shallowford Road right at that corner. And so, can I continue for a second?
Just finish.
So if you look at the units that are going to be on Obie Street, we've got the R zone on the other side that kind of picks up some property there. We're able to add some more units, and if the council would like for me to take some more time and meet with these residents, we can. I'd like to see this move through to city council and work with them, and then also work with Councilwoman Coonrod, who we've worked with a lot, to address some of their concerns. We'd be willing to do that.
Thank you. Councilor Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. Donna, real quick, when you talk about improving the road, and that's not a zoning question, but are you talking the entire length of what we're seeing in red outline here on OB?
It would go from Shallowford Road, where it connects into Shallowford Road, and it would go all the way along the frontage of our property.
Yeah, I would say you can't improve it past. I mean, you could, I guess, if you wanted to, but
You mean all the way down Obie Street, or
from
just
from the property where I'm seeing red, the R1 section, all the way to Shallowford.
That's where we're gonna make the improvements to the road
You would
and widen
improve
it.
that to, I think 22 feet is our standard road width.
It
city
is.
standards.
It is. We would improve that. I want to say right now it's around 14 feet.
Currently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was on the record that you.
That
part of
is
this
that
improvement.
is on record. That is what we intend to do.
Would
is
that
to-
then turn that into a two-way street? Do you know? I'm getting
It
into
would for that
I'm
section.
getting into CDOT weeds now.
It would, for that section of the road, become a two-way street.
And the number, last question, Mr. Lehman, I'll run the numbers game as I always do. Under the current R3 with the attached R1, if that were to be all R3, the difference between that and the UGC.
Oh, I wish I had looked at that closer.
I'm just curious for the record.
Do you know Brian?
Brian may know.
Brian, the 1.06 acres that we had on that was for everything, correct?
What I calculated based on R3, that 1.06 is for the entirety of the site. You can get about 19,
That's what I got.
Three more with UGC.
structures. No,
No, three more with
with the R3. There is no maximum density UGC. So you can get an unlimited number in theory, but you got to deal with the setbacks and slope. I don't know how many they can get on there.
Yeah, and we obviously have the steep slope vegetation component going to kick in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I want to reiterate at the beginning a couple of really key points to this project. One, the apartment complex is not in compliance. It's half an R1. So one of the goals is to get it into compliance. Two, the second major goal is to stabilize this slope that is currently unstable. And one way to do that is to do this townhome unit. And like I said, typically you don't want to get into the cost, but that is a big expense. And so to kind of offset that, we would like to do the townhomes to help retain that that wall with the units for the development. And then three, we're going to improve Obey Street to 22 foot wide, which would make it a two-way street. And it would be a better view. You wouldn't see the back of those apartments as much, because I think that was one of the complaints. You would see brand new townhome units, and they would be individual units.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I missed this, I apologize, but did you address the height of these buildings?
The height, I would be willing to do a height cap on this. I think what we had looked at was 3 stories. Again, it was like the other case where you're running down a slope. So it would look like 3 stories from OB Street.
Ms. Schultz, and so currently, if UGC was approved, it would be 5.
You can go up to 5, and this is conditioned. And then R3 has a maximum height of 2.5 stories at 35 feet.
Okay. And I also want to verify, I believe that I heard some of the opposition mention that they didn't want apartments there, but to make sure I'm hearing this correctly, these are the new construction would be strictly townhomes.
The new
simple,
construction is
individual townhomes.
Yes, they're individual townhomes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Shepherd, did you say that you would be willing to meet with the residents and with Councilman
Absolutely.
Coonrod on this? Would you be willing to defer this in order to,
Yes.
to
Yes,
do
I
that?
would.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Other? Mr. Anderson.
Sorry, Donna, I've got a question too, since Matt asked that. What does a 30-day deferral do to this project?
I mean, it's not a killer. I mean, we'd like to move forward with the project. Like I said, we're anxious to get started on stabilizing the slope and start working on our plans. But if that's what's necessary, we can. I'd like to see it go to city council and work through some of these things between now and city council, if we could.
Chairman, hearing that, don't throw anything. I'd like to make a motion to approve this with a height maximum of UGC at 3 stories. Knowing Councilwoman Coonrod as I do, I'm sure she's going to attach some other conditions to it if she
Absolutely.
decides to sign on. So I encourage you to call her by the end of the day today to get
I
that
will.
meeting set up with her and the residents.
Absolutely.
That's my motion, Chairman.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve UGC with a maximum of 3 stories being the sole condition. Has been seconded. Mr. Adam. Yes, sir.
Will that include the widening of OB Street? I know it's like on the record now, but do we need to add that as a condition, or is that like obvious at this point?
If it's appropriate, I would add that as a condition. Donna, are you willing to commit to that
I'm
today?
sorry, I didn't hear what he said.
The widening of Obie Street.
Yes, I mean, it'll be a requirement for the land
Cedar.
disturbance permit.
That's what I thought. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine to just not add it. Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none. So all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Next item 21 is case number 2023. It's located at 307 West 42nd Street. It's to rezone from M1 manufacturing zone to RTZ residential townhouse 0 lot line zone. It's a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition? One, okay. Well, let's hear from, we're going to hear from staff first, and then the applicant will have a little bit of time, and then you'll have some time to speak. Brian, if you could take us through this case.
Can we, I'm not, opposition may be for the next case. Can we clarify she may be on this one too? Let's make sure. It's not the next case.
Is your case, I'm sorry, ma'am, the 307 West 42nd Street, is that your opposition? Okay. Very good.
It is this one?
Or West 47th Street? Both.
Both. Okay.
Gotcha. Perfect.
Just want to clarify.
Yep. Okay, Brian.
2023-84. This is a request to rezone from M1 manufacturing zone to R1 RTZ residential townhouse 0 lot line zone. Proposed use is single unit residential. The size of this property is 0.16. Applicant is proposing 2 units. That's a density of 12.5 dwellings per acre. Looking at the zoning map, this property is zoned M1, which does not allow residential. To the north is R3, to the east is R3, and to the south and west of this property is manufacturing. There has been some zoning history nearby, but not on this piece of property. In 2016, there was a request to the east of this site to rezone from M1 to R3. That was approved. In 2006, the property at the corner to the east of this site was rezoned from M1 to R1. That was approved. And then 2004, the property to the west, as shown at the cross hatching, was approved for a PUD back in 2004. So there has been some history of this area transitioning from manufacturing to residential. This is a vacant piece of property. To the north of this property is a parking lot and a single unit residential dwelling. On both sides, the east and west of this property is single unit residential. And to the south of this property is storage or manufacturing. This is the view of the site from 42nd Street. View of the site from 41st Street. This is the view north of the site, which is the parking lot I just indicated. This is south of the site, which is the storage. East of the site, which is single family dwelling. West of the site, which is single family dwelling. And then this is the railroad line west of the site. This property is located in the Alton Park land use plan, which was adopted in 2000. It recommended at that time recreation. However, has a policy to increase the number of quality, diverse, and affordable homes in Alton Park through rehab, infill, and new construction, and encourage new single-family home ownership. There's a closer view of that plan recommendation, which indicate recreational uses on this property. Here's a site plan submitted with a request. It is attempted to divide this property into 2 lots for 2 single-family dwellings. You could do this through a subdivision, but that would require multiple variances in terms of lot frontage and lot size and setbacks, which there would be no hardship in that case. Therefore, that's why the need for the zoning. This request is compatible with adjacent land uses and development reform north of West 42nd Street. The Alton Park plan has a goal of increasing housing opportunities within the neighborhood of Alton Park. So staff recommended to approve this request to rezone to RTZ.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Any questions for staff? Shepard, if you want to come up quickly or take as much time, or we can push your time.
I can go quickly. Brian, will you go back to the one that had the slide with the yellow and it showed the area and it talked about the recommendation of uses? This one right here. So the goal is to subdivide this into 2 parcels. As Brian mentioned, we would have to get several variances. It is a lot of record. We don't have a hardship. So what we'd like to do is do one single family house fronting either. We could do a single family house with an ADU by right, but as he mentioned, we couldn't have two separate owners. They'd have to be together. So single family ownership is a goal in this neighborhood. We have talked to Councilwoman Dotley. She is for this project, and it's a basic project, so I want to let them speak and then I'll answer.
Great, thank you. Yes, ma'am. If you can give your name and address.
Good afternoon. I'm Cora Taylor, and my address is 8089 Chinkapin Court in Ottawa, Tennessee. I'm here tonight because I am part of a major stakeholder in the neighborhood. I'm a member of the Union Grove Missionary Baptist Church. Right behind me is Pastor Taylor. We not only have members who live in the neighborhood, but we are a major stakeholder and we're a major landowner in the neighborhood. The reason we wanted to come forward is because we have not been given the opportunity to learn about this particular project prior to today. We have been in meetings on the other agenda item with the Collier construction, and that has not come up, although we were made aware that this was up for rezoning. We have several questions basically about what exactly will be built there. We don't have an issue at all with residential. Obviously, it was zone manufacturing M1. And you're offering an opportunity for the neighborhood to have housing, which certainly would be consistent with both the master plan and also the Alton Park updated plan, which has not yet been adopted. And I have some associated questions about that. But generally speaking, the neighborhood is very, very interested in shifting this neighborhood in as a total community toward a community where you and I enjoy a neighborhood in which offers housing. But what our concern is the proximity to the church's property. For example, you're at 42nd Street and Highland. We own that corner on that corner lot there. And of course, the parking lot that has been referenced this afternoon is owned by the church. The church actually owns 7 or 8 parcels in the Alton Park neighborhood. We are disappointed that no one has reached out to the church to discuss this project. We have not finally decided what we want to do with that corner lot, but we are certainly interested in such things as exactly what are you building, how many stories will it be, and what the impact to the general area will be. We will respect the neighborhood plan, which is for housing. And as it was read by staff, there was an interest in recreational uses. The church, as a property owner, would support whichever direction the neighborhood would want to go. But again, we have not been approached in any form about this project, and we are very interested. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And I'll only say, I think probably the applicant shares in wanting to make sure that they communicate on what, and this is a good opportunity, and there's probably other opportunities prior to city council. So Ms. Shepherd, if you want to respond.
These are single family houses. They're 1 story. Each house will front, one will front 41st, one will front 42nd. We'll have driveway improvements, sidewalk improvements on those. I'll be honest, I didn't anticipate any opposition for a single family house. This is currently an M1 zone property, and several of them are M1, and they're existing non-conforming. We're not going any smaller than any other lot sizes that are in the neighborhood. So I think it's a good opportunity for just investment in this property and for the neighborhood.
Thank you. And I didn't ask if anybody had any questions for Ms. Taylor either, but either opposition or applicant. Mr. Anderson.
I don't have any questions. I have a motion. I mean, this is two houses on a piece of property where you could put a tannery or a slaughterhouse right now. This is going to improve the church property. It's going to improve the value of the church property. It's going to improve the neighborhood, and I move approval.
Okay, have a motion to approve. It has been seconded for RTZ zone. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item number 22 on the agenda, case number 2023-0093. It's located at 210 and 308 West 47th Street. It's to rezone from M1 manufacturing zone to C3 central business zone with conditions. The staff recommendation is to approve with conditions, and the applicant is present. And ma'am, would you want to speak again to this case? Okay. Mr. Schultz, is there any other opposition? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I asked for opposition. I know I saw this here. If I'm, hopefully you heard some of the discussion relative to it, and I'll only say it'll go to council. It'll go to city council. This is a recommendation body, and so it will go to city council. Yeah, and I think I'll let Ms. Shepherd. She's still here. She's the applicant, represent the applicant. She'll have all the answers, and so hopefully, thank you. Mr. Schultz, if you want to go through case 93.
Sure. This is 2023-93. This is Alton Park. This is a request to rezone from M1 manufacturing zone to C3 central business zone with conditions. Proposed use is mixed use. Overall acreage of this property is 45.09 acres. Looking at the zoning map, the property to the north is zoned R3 and R4 and M1. To the east of this property is M1 and R3. To the south is M1 and R1. To the west, immediately abutting this property to the west and south, you see the outside the red area, that's a M1 zoning. It's a large piece of property. That's Hawkins Ridge. Even though that's zoned M1, that's under a conservation easement to not be developed. Just want to make that for the record that it looks like it's a large M1. It is, but it's under a conservation easement to not be developed. The applicant did provide a list of typical C3 conditions. I'll go through those if needed, but if not, I'll move on. Again, there has been no history on this piece of property. There was a mandatory referral back in 2021 to close an open right-of-way. Then in 2016, immediately to the west of this site, abutting the conservation easement you see on the screen, that was rezoned from M1 to R1. But on this particular piece of property, there has been no zoning history. To the east of this site, in 2017, the R3 was rezoned from M1 to R3 with about 6 conditions related to height, vegetation, and internal sidewalks being provided, which does abut this property. This is a former, I think it's Keyjane Brick or Acme Brick facility. To the north, a single unit and 2-unit residential. You have some retirement homes. To the east of the side is vacant industrial land. To the northeast is industrial. To the east of this site, southeast really, is the multi-unit residential that's under construction today. And to the south is vacant land, and further south you do see single unit residential. And to the west is that conservation easement, which is vacant land. This property does have some slopes on it, as you can see indicated by the yellow and orangish colors, which is anywhere from 26 to 45% slopes. This is a view of the site from 47th Street. Another view of the site. This is a site from Kirkland Avenue. Another view of the site from Kirkland Avenue. This is Kirkland Avenue. The site's on the right-hand side, and to the left behind those trees are those apartments that are under construction. This is a view north of the site. Another view north of the site. This is northeast of the site, that industrial facility that's nearby. This is southeast of the site on Kirkland Avenue. Those are the apartments that are zoned R3 that are under construction. This is east of the site on 47th Street. Northeast of the site on West 47th and Chandler Avenue. This property is in the Alton Park Master Plan, which was adopted in 2000. Plan recommendation at that time was for this area to remain residential. However, that plan is 23 years old. It did say have plan goals of protecting Hawkins Ridge, which I just indicated a minute ago is in a conservation easement. It does have a plan goal of initiating infill housing to stabilize the community, increase business and job opportunities for residents, and provide streetscaping along Kirkland Avenue and West 47th Street, and encourage environmentally sensitive development concepts in the area. Here's a closer view of that plan recommendation, which was industrial. Again, along Kirkland, you can see the streetscaping that was recommended. This is one of the site plans that was submitted with the application. You can see it has little boxes of the proposed multifamily and single family and mixed use. Not much detail on the site plan. So taking that site plan and using the conditions, we came up with a staff recommendation. You know, there's been a market change over the years where industrial areas have been rezoned or converted to residential uses of mixed use developments in the city of Chattanooga. This is, you know, quite evident in the many rezoning cases we've had along Judd Road or Riverfront Parkway or Manufacturers Road. Some of those old industrial sites have been transitioning to residential. You know, staff understands the need for mixed use residential uses on this property. This could provide a benefit to the community. It's important to keep in mind this property is zoned M1 with no conditions. It could introduce a whole use of uses that would have a negative impact on the residential neighborhood. So the applicants provide several conditions to address the form of the site through C3 conditions. Staff recommends the typical C3 conditions that have been used prior to July 2021 for rezoning request to C3. We also added 2 additional conditions. One of those conditions being added was no mass grading or mass clearing above the 800 topo line as identified on the Hamilton County GIS map. And then we added a condition about a transition zone where abutting certain zones, you have to provide maximum height. So we added R3 to that because R3 zoning is to the southeast of this property. So staff agreed with the applicant's conditions and added an amendment to condition number 7 and added condition number 8 about mass grading and clearing above the 800 topo line. So it comes to you, the Planning Commission recommendation approved with conditions.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions for staff?
And I'll be glad to go through the conditions one by one if y'all need to hear those.
We'll ask, I'm assuming, if it's the 8 on the screen, correct?
There's 8, and most of them are dealing with landscaping standards, building standards, uses, minimum and maximum height, the typical things we've seen in the past with C3 conditions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chambers, name and address.
Rocky Chambers again, opposite 400 East Main Street here in Chattanooga. I'd say it's rare that we get to come before this board with a project that has this much good associated with it. Brian mentioned the Alton Park plan. It's 23 years old that hasn't seen really a lot of development to work towards that, implementing that plan. And I think this goes, it sounds like you were checking off the boxes of what we're trying to provide here. You also mentioned the Hawkins Ridge preservation, the conservation easement that's up there. And that's Jim Lee. He bought that property and preserved it for the community. And this property itself allows us to actually get public access to that conservation easement land, to finally get a dedicated access to the trails that are up there and get some animation up there as well. So I'm passionate about this project. I really like it. I think it's going to go a long ways. Just a little history about the project that and the property that Brian touched on, but this is a manufacturing facility. You know, it's being used as industrial use right now, with millions of bricks going in and out of there every year. And so there's lots of tractor trailers, lots of industrial traffic going through the project. A lot of industry around us too. A lot of it doesn't look that great, but these guys are willing to take a risk and willing to take on the challenge of trying to bring in a couple hundred either attached or detached homes in an area that hasn't really seen any single family investment really over the last 23 years since the implementation there. So we're essentially taking some old blighted industrial buildings down and providing a fairly vibrant mixed use and mixed market to this area. And so that'll have everything from, you know, some pretty high end homes down to, you know, some market rate housing that many of the adjacent residents or previous residents of Alton Park have expressed interest in coming back and living into. We have been able to meet with the neighbors several times here. We met with the leadership of the community via Zoom, and then we've actually had 2 community meetings where everybody's been able to come out and voice their concerns. And I think that is probably telling that, you know, a project of this size, we haven't packed the room here because we've been able to answer a lot of those questions. I can't say we'll get everybody on board, but I think we've gone a long ways to make that happen. I will say we really enjoyed working with staff on this project as well. We've gone back and forth a few times on the conditions on this project. I'd like to say we'd like to tweak just a few of those. And so if we get these on the record too, that'd be great. That 800 topo line that staff looked at and said, hey, you know, it gets kind of steep up there. Don't go above this line. We have been looking at some grading options that, you know, we'd like to raise that to an 820 line. And then I think we're fine there. And then there's a couple of other things. There's one point of clarity. They had mentioned a maximum height on some non-residential units. We'd like to make sure that we have clarity on the maximum and minimum heights on some residential structures as well. So we'd like to go ahead and add into those conditions, no minimum height for residential structures, but a maximum height of single family attached and detached of 4 stories to make sure that when we pull building permits, there's not any confusion down there. And then one thing I would like to push back a little bit on is that a lot of our residential, a lot of our commercial structures, we do like to have either a patio or something in front of them. And so if we could get that 0-foot front yard setback moved to, you know, 15-foot front yard setback, that'd be really desirable there as well, to make sure that we can do like the stuff that's on Cherry Street or some other areas of town that I think they've done a really good job providing a patio space in the front yard in those and still maintaining that nice street edge. That's all I've got for now.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, and I know there was some opposition. Any other opposition or someone that would like to speak to this? Okay, come on, sir, if you would, just your name and address.
Glenn Phillip Taylor, 8089 Chinquapin Court, Littlewood, Tennessee. Pastor of Union Grove Missionary Baptist Church, 4100 Highland Avenue. My major concern is has to do with not having opportunity to really explore fully what the planned development is, along with the fact that while there has been a mention of houses ranging from $200,000 to $600,000 in a community where the houses are far less valuable. And I believe it's going to ultimately lead to higher taxes for those residents who are living there. And the project seems to be more for attracting new people there than servicing the people who already live there. As a result, ultimately, there will be gentrification that will take place because people will not be able to afford to pay their taxes and continue to live there, being forced to either sell out or to lose their homes. And that's a major concern for me. I have a lot more that I want to say, but I'm going to defer now to my wife.
Thank you again. Cora Taylor, 8089 Chinquapin in Ottawa. I want to share with you that we are stakeholders of the Alton Park community, and we are advocates for the community. And as a member of the community, we are concerned about the living conditions there, and we're concerned about development. We are in opposition of the proposed rezonings, not so much because there won't be some improvements there to the area, but because we don't fully understand what exactly the developer wants to do. while the proposed C3 zoning changes that will be made to those two parcels, if granted through City Council, will move us from manufacturing to a residential use. It also brings along with it pretty intense commercial use as well. Alton Park is in need of small, non-dense commercial uses. Yes, we need more homes. And yes, there was a plan. And I'm hearing a little bit of concern with respect to the fact the plan is over 20-something years. But the fact is, the neighborhood has not changed that significantly. And that the neighborhood is still experiencing a lot of negative effect as a result of really adverse land uses already in place. So Alton Park is in need of small, non-dense commercial uses, not what is being proposed in C3. We're recommending C5, something along the lines of neighborhood commercial, because when you read that master plan of over 23 years ago, and you read the 2010 plan, where there was an attempt to update the plan such that it reflects now the needs today, you'll find that the neighborhood was interested in infill housing, as was read, and also interested in commercial, but commercial that serves the neighborhood. When we heard a description of this particular project in our meetings, what was clear to us is that this particular development would probably serve better and well those who might be coming from the outside into the neighborhood. Is that a problem? Not a problem. It's not a problem as long as it doesn't have an unintended consequence of displacing those who are already there. What we're wanting to bring to the attention of the Planning Commission is that the Alton Park has really served as, and this is in my opinion, has been the dumping place really for the city of Chattanooga, in which a lot of undesirable land uses have been placed there and have impacted the neighborhood directly, impacted their health adversarially. And we suggest that probably there are still some concerns there, and that what is being proposed, while it does shift us from M1 to some mixed housing types or residential types of uses, it also brings with it large, dense commercial uses that we believe is more intended for areas that are downtown or right next to downtown. This is a neighborhood that has been in search of a community in which they can go to sleep at night, a neighborhood that the quality of life in the neighborhood, you find that there's access to a street grid system that you can get through easily and be accessible by emergency services, a neighborhood that looks a lot like the ones that we live in, and that the residents of Alton Park should have a right to enjoy as well. So let me be really specific. The long and well-documented burden of heavy and industrial uses and the negative effect that it has had continues to happen in this neighborhood. And when you read that old plan, the theme of that plan is it has to change. And the theme of that plan is they're looking for a neighborhood in which people will enjoy living. Like many other parts of our cities, as we mentioned, this neighborhood is interested in a change that will be better for the future. A neighborhood where it has an environment in which all basic neighborhood needs are met. And so when we ask questions, first of all, the first community meeting was really kind of a cat and mouse game, and that in that meeting, the neighborhood did come. We did not hear very many specifics about the development. And then with a request of more time to talk with the developer, we were granted that. We were able to meet again. We did find out additional information. And that additional information includes a development project that is going to bring in, while it was mentioned, $200,000 to $600,000 priced homes in an area where most people who are living there now would be out of reach. what appears to us is that this development then would not serve those who are in the Alton Park community, but would be probably an attraction to those who would like to come in, perhaps from the suburbia.
Mr. Chairman, if I could interject, I don't know how much time we have left, but we have a neighborhood leader who lives in Alton Park who wants to still speak during the 9 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I will respect that. Thank you, sir. So we're looking for a neighborhood that connects the neighborhood. The design of this project shows that many of the benefits of that particular project will be within. And it will be much like a small neighborhood that's within a neighborhood, and within a neighborhood that is without a great number of these needs that I've mentioned. Let me just close by suggesting that the neighborhood would be interested in continuing to work with the applicant to request that the applicant would consider housing opportunities that would both benefit those who would like to come into the community, but also those who would like to step up and be able to afford a nicer form of living within a mixed housing type area. We think that neighborhood commercial would be more appropriate for this project, and we hope that you will consider it as this goes forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Gertha Lee. I'm with the South Chattanooga Community Association, and I'd just like to interject that we are indeed excited about this development. As before mentioned, there has been a lot of lack of opportunity for us to get development within our community, and we are really wanting, yes, we are still in the discussion phase with the developers, with our council person, with the community, but we feel that we can work through the intricate details of all of this. We want to make sure that our community concerns are met. We want to make sure that we talk with our council person, and the city can do whatever is deemed necessary. But the point of it all is we are finally feeling that we're getting something great to come into our community. We're looking for affordable home buying where we can create generational wealth within the community. And we truly feel that this would be a great accomplishment for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Mayor.
I missed what organizations you represented.
And
South Chattanooga Neighborhood Association.
Neighborhood Association. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chambers, if you've got a few minutes, if you'd like to say anything else.
Yeah, and I might just like to interject and just respond. And I really heartily agree with a lot of the comments that have said. I think that we share a lot of like-mindedness on certain things. And this has been a long project of interacting with Councilwoman Dotley, who is in full support of this and very excited to see it move forward. And a lot of the things that we have integrated into it were with her requests based on her long conversations with the neighborhood that even predate the recognition that this was an opportunity. So Councilwoman Dotley has visualized that something like this would be helpful. She's worked with the neighborhood, the residents, the leadership at South Chattanooga to say, hey, let's attract some development. If we do attract development, what should it look like? And so then when we approached her and said, hey, we're looking at doing this, she said, yes. Now here I have some ideas for you. And so the introduction actually of very diverse housing stock, which would allow price points from actually the 180s to the 600,000s, were actually Councilwoman Dotley's suggestions to bring in that wide diversity, to bring in a lot of housing stock, because there's just a lot of different opportunities. And there's been a lot of responses from the community that they would be excited about buying houses in this community. They would be excited about moving into it. The reason for the C3 zoning is so that we can provide and be responsive to the diversity of housing stock and to the small neighborhood commercial. The last thing that's going to happen here is big box commercial. This is going to be, as we just discussed before the meeting, more like yoga studios, coffee shops, boutiques, eateries. And so the C3 zoning allows us to do that blended balance of all kinds of housing stock, different sizes, surface park, garage park, all the way up to neighborhood commercial. And then the other thing is that in that 20-year plan, it mentioned environmentally sensitive development. So one of the things we actually scrapped an entire plan that we probably spent $50,000 on design and another $30,000 on engineering because it was extensive grading, and we decided to be more responsive to the land masses and to create more parks, more trails to connect it to the community. So we have parking actually on the front end where all residents from Alton Park can park and then hit our trails and sidewalks that will be connected into the preserved land all around it as well. So we've asked, are you going to gate it? Absolutely not. We have 4 entrances, we have parking, we have trails. They're to connect to all of the residents in all the community. So thank you.
Thank you. And let me get your name and address for the record.
Jim Lee, 1,000 Hills.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Chairman, I've worked in the Alton Park community for about 20 years. 4 years as the elected representative of Alton Park, and I assure you that they have a better one now in Council Chair Rakita Dotley. And for anybody who has worked in Alton Park or lived in Alton Park, Ms. Gertha, you know that there has always been a chorus from outside of Alton Park and really outside the city of Chattanooga, often in Ottawa, who speaks for Alton Park, who tells Alton Park what they need. And I'll tell you that I've talked to many, many people in Alton Park over the years, including recently on this and the chairwoman of the city council. This is the best thing to happen to Alton Park in a generation. It's going to transform lives there. It's going to make people stay in their houses better over there with more housing opportunities. And I'm proud to move approval on behalf of Chairwoman Dotley.
I have a motion to approve and Mr. Schultz is looking at me. I think there were 3 items that maybe the applicant mentioned that maybe you can take care of prior to city council, or
I think they'd be best handled by the councilwoman working with the neighborhood. I want to leave the conditions as is and give that to Rakita to
fair enough. Have a motion to approve staff recommendation has been properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we now have time for public comments on non-agenda items. Are there any comments from the public on non-agenda items? Seeing none, I think. Have approval for the minutes. It has been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Have a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank y'all.